Hey guys, in this video we're going to be talking about lending and borrowing on Mars V2. Now, if you've used a lending market in the past, a lot of the functionalities should be similar, or if you've used Mars V1. However, given the new credit account primitive, there are some notable changes. So let's start with lending. The first thing we want to do is we want to create a new account. So we'll go to the select account menu and just click new account, approve the transaction. Pending transaction. And there it goes. We have our new accredited account. So for this account, I just want to fund it with a bit of Osmo, nothing too much. So about 25% of what we have. And previously in the past, we've toggled this off when creating a credit account. Today we'll toggle it on. So you can also get some information in the footnote here. And essentially when you deposit your assets, they will automatically be lent. So we can select fund account. Pending transaction, signing the transaction. And there we go. So now if we go to our balances tab, we see that we have Osmo in our account, but it also says lent, right? This is new. And if we go to the earn tab, we can also see that we have lent Osmo in Mars V2. And if we toggle this down, we can withdraw as well. Now, another thing to note is that if you select up here on credit accounts, you can also toggle this on and off, right? And this will do the same functionality. It will lend all of your assets in your credit account automatically. So that's the first and easiest way to hop in and start lending your assets. Now, let's show a different example where we do this a little bit more manually. So we'll just create a new account. We'll approve. And now we have a new account. So we'll select our assets. For this example, we can do Atom, USDC, Osmo. You can also see the APYs here if we were to lend them out. We select the assets and the amount we want. I'll do all Atom, all USDC, and the majority of Osmo. Remember, Osmo is the gas token, so you still need some of it to transact. For this example, we'll do it manually, so we will not lend assets automatically. We'll fund our account. Approve the transaction. Cool. So now if we go to our balances tab for this account, we see that we have Atom, USDC, and Osmo, but they are not being lent, right? So we would have to go to the Earn tab under Lend and then select which asset we want to deposit to the lending market. So let's just do USDC. Why not? We select Lend, and let's just lend all of it. Yeah, sure. Pending transaction. Approve the transaction. And there we go. Now if we go to our balances tab, we see that Atom, Osmo are just deposited assets, but USDC is a lent asset and it also has an APY, right? So that's how you would manually do it. Now, if you want to withdraw, you would simply select the asset, select withdraw, and how much you want to withdraw. Approving the transaction, signing the transaction, and success. There you go. Now that we've withdrawn our USDC, we just see it as a deposited asset on our credit account, but we no longer see that it is being lent and there is no APY for it. We're not earning yield on our assets, right? So the next thing we want to do then is we want to borrow some funds, right? So we can go to the Borrow tab and select any asset we want to borrow. Let's say I want to borrow USDC. Why not? We select Borrow. And let's open up our balances tab to see what's going on. So let's do 50%. So very simply, what this is going to show is we now have a debt of USDC, right? And our balance of USDC has increased. It went from about 68 cents to $4, right? And also note our account health and the leverage that we're taking. We're taking about 2.8x leverage, and our account health is in the yellow, right? Obviously, the more that you borrow, the more leverage you're taking and the riskier that your account health is going into. One thing to note is that with Mars V2, your entire credit account serves as collateral. This means that any assets in your credit account are collateral, but also any foreign positions, etc., which means that you can borrow against those, right? Now, the next thing we want to show is this receives funds to wallet option. So you'll notice that without toggling this on, I can borrow up to 668 of USDC, right? As soon as I toggle it on, you'll notice that the amount that I can borrow for USDC is significantly lower. So why is that the case? So when you're receiving the funds to your wallet, this behaves similarly to Mars V1, where you could only borrow with over-collateralized deposits, right? Which means that the amount you can borrow is actually less than the amount of the amount of the total value of your deposits. Now, with Mars V2, because it's contained within the credit account itself, there's the ability then to borrow more funds than deposits itself. That's a key innovation of Mars V2, solving this over-collateralized problem while being contained within an account. So if you're going to play and trade and farm, etc., within your account, your exposure to leverage is significantly higher than if you were to receive the funds to your wallet, right? You could only do so under an over-collateralized scenario. So let's just borrow normally for now. Let's do, 25%. Pending the transaction, proving, and success. We have our transaction. And just to show how it would function in the other scenario, let's just borrow some Atom, and let's see how much we can max borrow, right? We can max borrow about $4, and let's select receive funds to wallet. So now we can max borrow about $1.03, right? And we'll borrow about 25%. We don't want our account to be liquidated or be too unhealthy, right? And so let's see what's happening down here. We have that USDC debt from the assets we borrowed. That goes into our USDC assets. Those remained within our account, right? Now, we're also borrowing Atom, right? But you'll notice then that the value of Atom, doesn't matter how I toggle this, whether it's up or down, the value of Atom in our credit account is the same because the Atom that we're borrowing is not going to our credit account. It's going to our wallet, which means that we should see this Atom in our wallet, right? And we should see the debt here. So let's borrow. Pending transaction, signing the transaction. Cool. The last thing we want to do is withdraw and borrow from a credit account. So to do this, we head up here to the credit account tab, and we select the credit account we want to withdraw from and select withdraw. For this example, we'll be withdrawing some Osmo. So let's check out our balances tab. We have about 3.2 Osmo worth about 80 cents. And typically, we could withdraw all of it, right? So what this shows is that our size and our value has gone to 0 because we are withdrawing everything. Now, if we select this toggle here, which has withdraw with borrowing, it will allow us to withdraw 3.31 Osmo, right? No, 3.20 versus 3.31. What this means is we're able to withdraw a little bit more Osmo than we actually have in our account because we're borrowing Osmo and then withdrawing that, right? And so we see here then that the value of our Osmo in our credit account has completely gone to 0 because all of that is leaving our credit account and going to our wallet. And we're also taking up an Osmo debt, right? Because we're borrowing Osmo and then withdrawing that Osmo as well. Note that when you're borrowing Osmo and you're withdrawing, similar to the previous examples, you can borrow less Osmo than if you kept it within your credit account, because it's assuming an over-collateralized scenario, right? So it's using the value of your credit account and determining how much Osmo you can borrow with the collateral that you have, i.e. your entire credit account as collateral. So it's still similar to Mars V1 when you're doing this function where it's over-collateralized, but it's also slightly different because even under this situation, you can use your entire credit account as collateral, which means things like farm positions, etc., can also serve as collateral. Yep. So let's do this. Pending transaction. Approving the transaction. And success. There we go. Lastly, if you want to learn about Mars V2 and lending and borrowing, you should go to docs.marsprotocol.io. Here, there are a couple of sections. So under Mars V2, lend and borrow, you can learn about how lending and borrowing works. You should also look into the interest rates, how interest rates work, and risk parameters for each type of asset. And if you want a step-by-step tutorial, you can go to lending assets, and yeah, that's about it. And lastly, borrowing as well, right? So borrowing assets and repaying your loan. Sweet. Stay tuned for more.